Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show. Well, there, it's been a year and change, but finally we've reached the end of Outlander, and it's time for more Grumpy Opinions. Apologies all round for the absence, but after the last season I toyed with the idea of doing a few other reviews, but then my good old PC died. Yep, dead, and the old laptop just wouldn't cut it for video editing, and it's been absolutely ages since I could afford a new one, so I just thought I might as well leave it until Outlander rolls back round again. So let's get into Season 3, with Episode 1, The Battle Joined. Now the new season starts off with a whole load of dead Scotsmen, and it's all solemn and sad, and amidst the bodies we find Jamie, lying half dead in a corpse pile. Poor Jamie's not really with it, and through his fevered mind we get to see him return from the stones, chat with Chucky, wade into battle, leading men, joking with Myrta, and doing all kinds of cool and-hero stuff. But then he spots GBR crowd surfing, and they see each other across the dance floor, the battlefield. And then after some ninja stuff, some hugging and getting a sore leg, JBR finally gets what he's been after when Jamie gives him a good 7 inches of Clan Fraser. After that, it's back to sleepy time in Delirium, where Claire appears in the form of Rupert and rescues him. Only it's a short-lived rescue, as the farmhouse the survivors are hiding in is found by the British Army, and they order them to be executed. And it's not long before they all start volunteering, and soon enough, it's bye-bye Rupert and bye-bye that guy, whoever he was, and Jamie himself is up next, but shock horror. It only turns out that the laddie in charge is the big brother of the wee lad Jamie spared last season, so with family honour on the line, he orders him to be spirited away off in a cart, away to the welcoming arms of Jenny and Ian back at Lallybroch. And Claire, on the other hand, she's now in Boston, having agreed to play happy families with Frank, and she actually seems positively happy about having a proper home, and Frank and her awkwardly try to get on, but the grim realities of life in the 1950s are making her miss the simplicity of the old days, and she soon sees that in America, a clever wife is sometimes frowned upon. If that wasn't bad enough, she keeps getting all sorts of really on-the-nose symbolism and can't stand to be touched by Frank, who's understandably not very impressed. That leads to little argy-bargy and him sleeping on the sofa. But still, Frank's a doer, so he starts writing a letter to the Reverend about Jamie, and Claire only goes and has her water break right then. So it's off to the hospital where, sexism again reigns supreme, and against her wishes, she's put under anaesthetic. Luckily, she wakes up to find her baby alive and well, phew. And Frank's all like doting dad, and she's all emotional, and it's a really sweet moment, and it looks like everything's going to be absolutely okay. And then the daft nurse only comes in and makes a big deal out of the baby's ginger hair. Honestly, some people. So what did I think? Well, I'm absolutely over the moon that the show's back on telly. I mean, after a disappointing turn on the old Game of Thrones this year, I've got an awful lot of hope for Season 3 of Outlander. I mean, considering the way the last season ended, we've got a huge amount of ground to cover, both in terms of years and emotionally for the characters. I mean, we know that Claire's going to end up widowed with a feisty and intelligent daughter 20 years down the line, but we've really no idea what happened. And then we've no idea what's going to happen to Jamie, I mean, unless you've read the books. But it was like an 11th hour revelation in the last season that he doesn't die at Culloden. So, I mean, that was a surprise, I suppose, if you've never seen a TV show before. But the point is, we don't know what's going to happen to him, and it would be really interesting for people who don't know the story. We've also had a whole season of build-up to like this battle. We had Preston Pans as a wee taster of the action, but we didn't really get to see much of the war. And it's absolutely great to see a proper view of a battle right from the middle, like in the daylight, not in the mist. I mean, even if it was a defeat. And I really like the way that they kind of covered the battle by using Jamie's wee story as a microcosm of it all. It starts out well, but then then he gets into more of a fight, and then it gets really tough, and then he gets injured, and finally he's like lying half dead, like when those around him are all like falling down left, right, and centre. And I really liked the duel between Jamie and Blackjack. It was really well done. And I loved the fact that it was actually quite fast, kind of strange and almost dreamlike. I mean, there's a definite sort of Kurosawa sort of sense to the way that they like run and both jump at each other and in the fight. And then that weird moment when they seem to be the only two people left alive on the battlefield, and they're just sort of walking, swinging their like knives at each other from a meter or two away. And then the way that they kind of just fall into an embrace as Blackjack finally bleeds out, and it's almost sad, and like the way that he looks scared, and he's almost like he's just reaching out for Jamie at the end in his last moments. And it's a strange thing, but I actually thought I could hear two people breathing at the start of the episode, like maybe Blackjack wasn't actually dead yet, maybe they were both still lying there just dying, and he died first. I mean, maybe it's just me, I could be wrong. I also loved the way that the Highlanders volunteered bravely for their executions later on. I mean, even the two wee young lads. I mean, literally, they're all just going to their god like a soldier. I mean, it was a really nice moment. It was a great send-off for Grant Rourke, who's done some really, really good work on this show. I mean, he's been a stalwart all along. Yeah, and while I'm at it, I'd also like to commend Tobias Menzies again for the great work as Blackjack. I mean, now we've seen the end of him once and for all. And in Claire's story, I love that they played the tension between her and Frank so well. I mean, Kate really nailed that kind of strained desperation, and Tobias manages to convey really loads with like kind of subtle face twitches and like glances around the room. I mean, this is going to be a difficult story to tell, and I really think that they're up for it. But it could hardly be grumpy opinions if I didn't have some annoyances, and I did have a few. But since we've been talking about Claire, let's like start there. Now, I know that Claire's in a bad place, and this is like seriously trying on the patience because Frank's really doing absolutely everything to try and make life nice, and she just seems kind of psychologically far away. Now, sure, I know it's only supposed to be a few months down the line since she came back through the stones, and it does seem kind of unfair, but in a way that totally it makes sense why Diana Galbado never really wrote that much about Frank and Claire's relationship during this period. I mean, only like apparently a bit off bit. I've still not read the books, but I've heard a lot about it. And clearly, it kind of makes her the bad guy if we're just seeing her being nasty and him being nice all the time. So it's going to take some seriously good writing to kind of even this out and stop folk who aren't book readers from just ending up disliking her. I mean, even if he does end up doing bad things later on, it's going to end up feeling like he gets pushed into that by somebody who just doesn't care about him. But as I said, it'll be really interesting to see what happens with that. But at the moment, I'm not really feeling it. My other big crib was the "oh, isn't it sexist" writing was so painfully on the nose. I mean, yeah, sure, it's the 1950s, but we've all seen Mad Men, we've seen Agent Carter, or at least I have, and this kind of feels like more of the same, but it was really clunky and obvious. I mean, it might well be realistic of the time, but it felt unsubtle, and unsubtle TV stuff is never that great. It was like a big sledgehammer full of obvious being smashed into your brain. Getting back to like Jamie's time, and no matter how you swing it, after the battle sequence, the episode slows down a lot and gets a wee bit dull. I mean, most of it is Jamie literally just lying on the ground gasping and muttering, and since the camera spends so much time on him, it does get a wee bit trying. I mean, Sam does his best to act his face off and like try to look pained and sad and proud and show these emotions with just his eyes and a little bit of things, but seeing as like five different people end up getting shot off screen, it gets kind of repetitive and it feels a bit cheap rather than being meaningful. Like they just couldn't afford to actually show the actors being shot, which is crazy considering that they've done all this other work. I mean, yeah, it really worked with the Rupert moment because you heard it and you saw like Sam's eyes and them tearing up and everything. But the rest of the time, it was like, right, I get it. The wee boys have died. Yeah, I get it. Someone else has died. Oh, I get it. Rupert's died. Oh, I get it. The other bloke's died. Oh, Sam's asked him to die now. I mean, the problem is I mean, Sam Heughan has lovely cheekbones, but if the story is going on outside the building, maybe you don't want to spend the whole time just looking at him. I mean, I could be wrong there. Maybe I'm the wrong audience for it, but who knows? Also, the super convenient Lord John Deus Ex Machina was kind of silly, largely because the dialogue between John's brother and the subordinate guy really sounded clunky. It was like all exposition. It didn't sound like a conversation real people would have had, and it certainly didn't sound like a conversation two military officers would have in front of the prisoners about to be executed. I mean, even if most of them are injured, what if one of them overheard and was like, just before he got shot, was like, "Excuse me, please, could I be like put in the wagon with the other guy?" And like the other soldiers would be like, "What other guy is he talking about?" And yeah, anyway, I didn't buy it, but overall, I did enjoy the episode, and I can't wait for next week. And I'm really glad that Outlander's back, and I really hope that you enjoy this review and you stick with me for the rest of the season. So until the next time, I've been Ian, and these have been my grumpy opinions.